So today's topic is some reflections on practice of mindfulness and how to use it in the classroom, something I've been doing for the last 12 years or so. And I've been practicing some form or another of mindfulness related meditation for, at this point, almost 30 years. So it's something I have a lot of personal experience with, as well as like trying to introduce it to students. I think everybody here is probably familiar with the idea of mindfulness, at least the idea that it's something that maybe is pretty widespread in a lot of different areas of American society today. Time magazine declared that there was a mindful revolution taking place in 2014. So that's almost 10 years ago. And mindfulness has only become more prevalent since then. There's a lot of research now that's been conducted over the last 3 decades on not only the clinical benefits or the medical benefits of mindfulness, which is definitely one huge area of research. I actually just looked up in PubMed the number of articles that have the word mindfulness in their title or abstract in PubMed is almost 20,000. When you look at the dates of those publications, really exploding in the last 30 years and having this exponential curve. Aside from the medical research, there's a lot of research in the use of mindfulness in other kinds of arenas of society. This slide just shows some of those. For example, mindfulness in prisons has been shown to reduce recidivism, reduce violence in the prisons, raise quality of life in the prisons. Mindfulness in the military is being used both pre and post deployment, pre-deployment in order to provide people with tools for managing the stress of combat, and then post-deployment for managing PTSD and other related kinds of issues. Mindfulness in the office place has been shown to increase productivity, decrease stress, all kinds of other kinds of metrics that businesses have been very enthusiastically adopting mindfulness in order to improve the experience of the workplace. And then finally, in schools, mindfulness has been used in K through PhD in all kinds of different settings. It's been shown to increase attention, increase memory, decrease disciplinary problems, and to really be helpful in classroom management and a number of other things. So I'm a researcher of Buddhism and medicine, or Buddhist healing practices, Buddhist medical practices. And I look at that historically, and I also look at that critically. So I have presentations where I both put this into a historical context, and then I have presentations where I really critique the widespread adoption of mindfulness across American society and point out some of the real problems with mindfulness. I'm just going to mention one to give you a flavor of the problems, and then we're going to move on because this isn't that presentation. So one potential area that I like to point out is that mindfulness, that's overwhelmingly beneficial for people, but there is some research that's now emerging about intensive meditation practice being potentially destabilizing for people with trauma and for people with other kinds of mental health and issues and needs. So it's something just to be aware of, that whenever you're introducing mindfulness to a group of people, that I think it's really ethically vital to say that this is an invitation to participate in this. And if it doesn't work for you, then you can feel free to just sit quietly and do something else, to give people the agency to be able to opt out of something that feels wrong for them. And it may not be for you. You may get to the end of this presentation and say, it's not really for me. I want to move past the kind of the critiques, get into a little bit of how to practice mindfulness. I just published a book last year, which is an introduction to Buddhism for people who aren't really looking to sign up for a spiritual or religious tradition. If you're interested in a really accessible, easy intro to mindfulness, one of the chapters in there has a lot more detail. So mindfulness, it does originate in Buddhist practice. It has now been secularized, and this trend or this process of secularizing the practice of mindfulness has been taking place now for over 120 years. That psychologists and psychiatrists and medical researchers and so forth in the West have been studying mindfulness and related meditation practices within medical, clinical, psychiatric, psychological contexts. So sometimes there is an objection could be by students, it could be by other groups, to the introduction of mindfulness into secular spaces because of its origin in Buddhism. But there are a lot of forms of mindfulness that are thoroughly secularized. And so whenever I'm introducing mindfulness within a Penn State context, I'm making very clear to be introducing secular versions of mindfulness and not Buddhist versions of mindfulness. So mindfulness, English word itself, is actually translating an Indian word, depending on which language. It's either sati or smriti. These are Pali and Sanskrit terms that actually mean something like remembering, recollecting, or to bear something in mind. So mindfulness is a good English translation of those terms. Bearing something in mind, recollecting something is what we're doing in this practice. But so what exactly are we bearing in mind in the practice of mindfulness? So there's thousands of meditation practices, all kinds of different contemplative practices from all kinds of different traditions, religious, secular. Mindfulness is specifically the recollection or the bearing in mind or the remembering. You're remembering to attend to your own physical body and your own mental phenomena. Just for an example of something that's not mindfulness would be chanting a mantra of some kind, if Om, or even if you were just saying, be happy, I'm well, something like that. If you're repeating these words over and over in your mind, you're not doing mindfulness. If you are introducing any kind of external numbers, let's say you're counting, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or your A, B, C, D, any kind of external shapes or colors or visualizations, or anything like that, you're not doing mindfulness. So mindfulness is attending to what is there, what is happening naturally in your mind and your body. And the idea is you're constantly remembering to reflect back on that. You're reminding yourself throughout the time period that you're practicing mindfulness to keep coming back to what's going on here in my mind, in my body, without me controlling it, introducing something, without having some kind of external thing that I'm trying to bring in. So it's not just reflecting on something or thinking about something, nor is it trying to erase thinking and really trying to just have a blank mind. It's just letting what happens happen, but just attending to what's happening naturally. So one common way of talking about this is that what we're doing is we're training our brains, we're training our minds to be able to just be aware and present in the given moment, in whatever moment it is, right? Just to be aware of what's going on and to be present to what's going on in that moment. There are helpful anchors, you could say, or helpful points of reference, you could say, to return to when you start getting lost in thoughts and fantasies and dreams and so on and so forth. It's entirely normal to sit down and try to do mindfulness and you start thinking about all sorts of stuff you have to do that day. You're thinking about what you're going to eat for lunch or whatever. You're planning, right? You're doing everything. Those are actually mental phenomena, but you're not really actually aware and present with them. You're just getting lost in them. Right? It's suddenly you're thinking, suddenly the timer goes off. You've been there for 10 minutes. You're like, oh, I didn't even notice time going by because I was so lost in my thoughts, right? That's not mindfulness. So there's some anchors that can help to bring you back to actually being present with your physical and mental phenomena. The most common of which is your breathing. So that's like the 90% or whatever of mindfulness. Basic instruction is going to focus on your breathing. So, when you get distracted, you remind yourself, oh, wait, I come back to my breathing and keep breathing and pay attention to my breathing. That's not the only base for mindfulness, home base for mindfulness. Basically, any physical or mental phenomena can be a base for mindfulness. So you can come back to the sounds that you're hearing. You can come back to the feeling of your body on the chair where you're sitting. You can come back to if you're with your eyes closed, you can come back to the visual image of the light that kind of floats around in your visual field when your eyes are closed. And you can just use that. It's a phenomenon that's happening, that's actually happening right now, right? So anything that's happening right now within your mind or your body can be a base for mindfulness to come back to. So it's not just only coming back to the breath. In fact, some people have an easier time with one versus another. I've had a really hard time with mindfulness of the breath. I've been doing this for, like I said, almost 30 years, and other bases can be easier. And it's just a matter of exploring and finding out what works for you. Although most instructions for mindfulness, if you find like intro mindfulness instructions, it's almost always start with the breath. But remember, the object isn't to watch every single breath. The object is to be aware and present in the moment. So whatever's happening in the moment, just being there and present with that. All right, so I'm going to give you 4 ideas for mindfulness with your teaching. Method number 1. It's a great metaphor, I think, because students have been running around maybe between different classes, talking with friends on their phone. Maybe they were just stuck in traffic on the way to class. They're like rushing because they're late, right? There's all kinds of stuff that's been going on that's very scattered and very stressful, and maybe other kinds of emotions have been running around. And then they come into the classroom and they sit, and you're going to jump right in with your lecture, right? So a couple of minutes of just actually arriving in the space, landing the plane that you've been like zooming around in, right, into the space and actually inhabiting the present moment is extremely helpful, not only for the students, but I've been doing the same thing right before I got to class, right? I was just on email and rushing, and then, the bathroom was locked and I had to run up to the other floor. Then I get into class and I'm the same way, right? So we all could use a couple minutes of a landing practice. And so I use a landing practice with my students that focuses on the bases of feeling the body sensations of sitting in your seat. Like they come in, they sit in the seat, and we're going to do our landing practice. We're going to feel what it feels like to sit in a chair, which means like attending to the presence of body sensations on your bottom, on the back of your legs, right? On your back where you're resting against the chair. Maybe you might feel it in the rest of your body too, in your shoulders. Where do you feel gravity in your body bringing you down into your chair, right? And I just encourage them to just take a deep breath and just feel your body landing into your seat. And so that's for 1 minute. And then for the second minute, once you've landed in your seat, open your ears and just spend 1 minute just hearing whatever sounds there are to hear in this room that we're in, right? Just hear the sounds. What's going on in this room? Or maybe sometimes you hear sounds from outside the room. What's going on in this space, in this sphere that I'm actually occupying right now? So those are the instructions. I give them a couple of times the first like couple of weeks of class. And then after that, it's just part of what we do in class is, okay, time to land. Let's everybody take a seat. They close up their phones. We're going to do a landing practice together. See what you think about it. So roughly take a minute to just feel yourself landing into the chair that you're sitting in, or I'm standing. So I'm going to land onto my feet. And then the second minute, just opening up your ears and just listening to this sphere of sound that's around you. We'll try it together. And so when you do this in the classroom, there's always students in the hall talking. There's always, you can hear the people banging on the whiteboard next door. It's not like, oh, we're going to enter this monastic quiet temple on the mountaintop or something like that, right? So it's not about like trying to control the space at all. It's about actually inhabiting the space that you're in. Actually, like, what is this space that I'm in? What's going on in this space where I am? And just being there and being present with it. Not wishing it was different or controlling it or whatever, just like arriving in the space that you're in. So first one is landing practice. I don't care what your discipline is, taking, even if it's 30 seconds, 90 seconds, 2 minutes is what we did to arrive in the classroom. No matter what your discipline is, that is universally applicable. I wish I could use it in faculty meetings, actually. I think I might, actually. Anyway, the second one is a little bit more discipline specific. Like you kind of have to think about, how would this work in my discipline? I think some disciplines, it may be easier to imagine mindfulness in an in-class assignment. I can totally see in art really focusing on the breathing while you're painting or something like that. Or in theater, I can totally see like focusing on your body sensations while you're moving around or something like that. You know, it's maybe not quite so clear on how it might be incorporated in math or English or writing or whatever. My home discipline is history. I'm doing reading and writing, presentations and stuff like that. You're going to have to be creative. The idea, though, is just to, at some point in the classroom assignment, to bring your attention out of the thinking that's going on and into what's happening in your body, what's happening in your mind. So if, for example, this is how I do it in my class, where I have a very short reading and then take a minute to reflect on how it's making them feel, not what they think about it, but how is this reading actually impacting your body, your emotions, your feelings. It could be a provocative reading. It could be something really thoughtful. It can be something very shocking. It could, but having the students like take a moment to do the reading and then setting a timer and saying, okay, you're going to take 4 minutes. You're going to read this and then just really sit with it and see how it feels in your body to be reading this particular passage. That's one example. I could think about in chemistry, you're like reaching for the beakers and mixing some chemicals together. You could do that with intentionality to your motion, to your movements, right? It might improve safety too, right? If I'm really going to be very much in my body while I'm reaching for this particular chemical that could be dangerous, right? And pour it, not doing that just absentmindedly, but I'm really paying attention to my arm is reaching out. Now it's touching. Now it's moving and now it's pouring. That would be mindfulness. Students presenting, all students are always in a panic about presenting out loud in front of the class. And this is a place where I always use mindfulness. Even if I don't call it mindfulness, I'll just be like, each person before you present, come up to the front of the room and just stand there and just take 3 deep breaths and feel the breaths come into your body and out of your body. Just actually feel the feeling of the breath going in and out. So there's lots of different ways that this might work for you, keeping in mind that mindfulness is just attending to the present moment and what's actually happening in your mind and body. There's a lot of different options here. So I thought we could do 2 minutes of paying attention to the feeling of the breath coming in and out of our bodies. So it could be anywhere, depending on how you're breathing, how you're sitting. You might feel your chest kind of like going in and out. You might feel it lower, like in your abdomen, if you're breathing more deeply. You might feel it in your throat or even right in your nose. You might feel the feeling of your breath coming in and out of your nostrils. It really doesn't matter where. You're just attending to the feeling of your breath coming in and out of your body. Like I said earlier, this is the kind of most common introduction to mindfulness practice that there is. So 2 minutes, just feeling the breathing coming in and out of our bodies, whatever way is most obvious for you to feel. Okay. Method 3 is to interrupt the flow of the class and to take a little bit of a break to reset. I feel this way with 75-minute classes that it's too long for students to just sit and do one thing for the whole time. So to have a little break in the middle, switch gears to something else. I think most of us are probably doing something like that. We lecture for a little bit, then we do a discussion or we do an activity, and then we do something else. One of the things you can do is when you feel the energy in the room dragging, people are getting a little bit foggy, you can use mindfulness to do this really effectively. So I like to also incorporate movement, because if you've been sitting there for 45 minutes or whatever, students are like falling asleep. We're standing at the front of the room, so we're awake, but they're sitting in this chair, right, for the umpteenth hour of the day that they've been sitting there, right? So this is where I like to incorporate some movement and just stand up. Stretch your arms and take a deep breath. That alone will change the atmosphere in the room quite a bit. But to do that with the intention that we're going to pay attention to our bodies while we do it, and pay attention to the sensations in our arms and our feet, on our skin. This could also be, we pay attention to the breath while we do this. It can be bringing attention to our own minds and bodies. And then I think it's really helpful lesson for students particularly, but for all of us, to pay attention to what was my mind, the shape of my mind or flavor of my mind, the weather in my mind, you could say. What was it like before I did that and after I did that? So like, okay, this is how I feel right now. And then stand up, do some circles with your arms and take 3 deep breaths, and then sit back down and see how your mind state has changed, how your body feels differently. So let's do that together. You've been sitting, listening to me, looking at your screen for a long time. Everybody just stand up and take your arms and just take a deep breath and breathe out. And do it again 3 times, or do it again so that you've done it 3 times. And then sit back down and just pay attention to your, how has your state of mind changed? How does your body feel different? How does your attention feel different? Your awareness feel different? Does your vision feel a little bit brighter? Sometimes my vision starts getting blurry and I do that and it brightens up a little bit. My chest feels a little bit more open, right? My back feels a little less sore from like the way I was sitting or standing. We'll try it together. And just having students explore that is so helpful. It's such a great life skill to know that when I'm feeling tired and a little bit sort of dragging, it's not that I need coffee. It's not that this class is boring. It's just that I need to stand up and breathe and then sit back down again. That could be a really valuable lesson for students. And so in my class, I have an open policy. Anytime anybody needs to stand up and move their arms around and take deep breaths, just stand up and do it. They don't often do it, but I then provide them the opportunity to do it all together as well. The method number 4 is having some kind of self-care practice, stress reduction practice, something that gets you in touch with your own being, your own self, your own presence, that can pull you. As academics, we're always in our heads. We're always thinking about stuff, constantly writing stuff, talking about stuff. It's all up here in our minds, and just having the ability to be able to step out of that thought stream and be able to sort of land ourselves in our own bodies is something that I think is extremely valuable for everybody, but particularly for intellectuals, for academics. And so what does self-care look like? If you talk to the Buddhists, they'll say, oh, you need to meditate for an hour at a time, twice a day. You need to go on these 3-year retreats in a cave in Tibet, and so on and so forth. If you look at the clinical research, though, there appears to be visible changes in the structure of the brain that can take place for new meditators within a couple of weeks practicing for 8 minutes a day. So it's really not much to carve 8 minutes of your day out at some point. And it could be first thing in the morning. It could be like when you get to the office 10 minutes earlier before your first class. It could be in between classes. It could be at wherever it is. It doesn't matter. Just taking 8 minutes to do any of the things that I introduced here, or you could look up other things online. And just remember, the idea isn't I'm going to like get rid of all of my stress and I'm going to push away all of my thoughts about these things that are bothering me. I'm going to like concentrate on my breath for the whole time. It's none of those things are right. Those are all common misconceptions about what mindfulness is. What a mindfulness self-care practice looks like is just saying, I'm going to sit in this chair, in this body, in this space with this mind that I have. And I'm just going to sit here and just be present with whatever's going on for 8 minutes, and then I'm going to go about the rest of my day. And I just trust that over the long term, that will bring me some kind of benefit that I will start to see in a couple of months. You're not going to see it in the moment that you're sitting, right? It's not that you become this blank slate, like perfect silent mind or whatever. The benefits come in the other parts of your day. When somebody cuts you off in traffic and you don't get quite so angry as you used to, or like something happens in the classroom and you're like able to handle it with a lot less stress than you used to. That's where the benefits come.